Hey everybody, welcome to Crack Pack Tuesday number 37 on the Mana League. I'm John as always, and it's time for some more Crack Packs for Battle for Zendikar. We only have a few of these left, not too many at all. I've got, I think, 5 left sitting here, and then we're going to be on to Oath of the Gatewatch in just a few number of weeks. But we're going to open this pack, and we're going to figure out what we would take. Pack 1, pick 1, if this was a draft. Up first, we have a Tadru Stalwart, 2 and a green for an 0-1, but it has Converge, and the number of colors that you use to cast this is the number of counters that it gets. So it gets 1, 2, or 3 counters, unless you somehow cast it with colorless green mana, which isn't a thing. So this is going to be, at the worst, a 1-2, which is pretty darn bad. You don't really want that to happen. As a 2-3, this is okay. It's still a little bit overcosted, and as a 3-4, it's pretty darn good. This is often a 3-4 when you build the deck properly. The trick is that this deck isn't really all that good. Green is not good in Battle for Zendikar. I think we all kind of know that, and this just isn't a card that you want to really go in on, and certainly not first pick. Here is a first pickable card, Clutch of Currents, a single blue to bounce a creature, but you can awaken it for 4 and a blue to make a 3/3 land in addition to that. Solid card. Just a huge tempo play, and it's totally fine to play this for 1, and it's totally fine to play it for 5. You know if you want to use this card, and it always feels good to use it. First pickable. Hopefully, the pack will have something better than that, but if it doesn't, we do have a first pick card there. Next up, we've got Culling Drone, 1 and a black for a 2/2 Devoid Ingest. I find this to be worse than Sludgy Crawler. I just like Sludge Crawler more. It can be bigger than a 2/2. It only costs a single mana. It's much better than this 2/2 because it gets outclassed very, very quickly. But if you are Blue Black Ingest, you know, these guys aren't too bad to have. If you need a 2-drop that's a 2/2, it's a totally fine filler. You're just never going to first pick this. Next up, we've got an Outnumber. This is a single red for an instant, and it deals damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you have. This usually goes pretty well in most red decks. Most red decks are going to have a large number of creatures, be they red-white allies or be they red-blue colorless, which is hopefully going to have a number of scions. This is generally at least a lightning bolt in my experience, and sometimes even more. And at instant speed, it's just solid removal. It doesn't quite get to first pick material most of the time because it is ever so slightly inconsistent, but it is still pretty darn good. Next up, we have Angelic Gift. Angelic Gift is an aura. It's 1 and a white. You enchant the creature. That creature gets flying, and hey, you get to draw a card too. Why not? Just not a good card. Don't play this if you don't have to. If you really desperately need a last card for your deck, it's there, but otherwise you're going to skip over this and certainly not first pick it. Next up, we have another first pickable blue card. Surprise, surprise, blue's the best color in the format. The blue X decks are good, with the exception of, surprise, surprise, blue-green. And Eldrazi Sky Spawner kind of goes in every single one of those decks and shines in blue-red colorless and blue-white flyers. 2 and a blue for a 2/1 flyer that makes a 1/1 scion. Totally good, totally good. The top 10 cards that I was wrong about in the set review video, which I promise is coming, I really hope this week, maybe. This is going to be one of the top cards, because I didn't realize that this is just Sandstep Outcast. This is just Gearpoor Gearcrafter, except better than them. This is just a super solid card. And from the top to the bottom, we've got a Hedron Blade. It's a single colorless mana. A single generic mana. That's important now. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Whenever the equipped creature becomes blocked by 1 or more colorless creatures, it gets Death Touch until end of turn. And the equip cost is 2 generic mana. This doesn't do enough. A +1/+1 equipment, even for 1, is just never enough. It costs a card in your deck. This could be nearly anything else, and it would be much better. Don't take these. Don't play these. Thankfully, I've never, ever seen this card on the other side of the battlefield. I mean, maybe it would have been good, because it probably would have been an easy win. But people know not to play this, and you certainly don't pick it. Next up, we've got Bone Splinters. This, I guess, could be first pickable in a terrible pack. It is removal. You do have to have a creature to sack, but boy, does it ever feel good to sack a Scion. You're going to sack it anyway for mana at some point. To sack it for a single black mana to kill anything, including, an Eldrazi Devastator or a flyer that's been giving you a lot of trouble. Just fantastic. Super love Bone Splinters in the blue-black deck especially. But kind of like Outnumber, it's a little bit inconsistent because you do have to have a creature that you're willing to sack. So it falls out of first pick in all but the most horrible of packs that I've never actually seen. So I don't think we'll first pick it, especially since we've already seen 2 cards that I would take over it. Next up, we've got Unnatural Aggression. This is 2 and a green for a Devoid fight card at instant speed. This is almost as pure, just flat out as pure as you can get. Fight card. One of your creatures fights one of your opponent's creatures. End of story. This is really good. This is green's removal. This is how green destroys creatures. They have big creatures. They're going to anyways. They're green. And they can make those creatures smack other creatures around and kill them off. Unnatural Aggression is one of the cards that you want to have 2 copies of, maybe even 3 copies of, if you have found yourself in the green deck at the table. But of course, you don't want to find yourself in the green deck at the table. If you see these going around late, that means that green is super, super open. And if you maybe have a reason, you opened something incredible in green, then this should be a good sign that, hey, it's super open. But you're never going to first pick it because you don't want to be in green, and it's just not a first pickable card. Next up, we've got Sandstep Bridge. This is a land. It enters the battlefield tapped. It gives a creature +1/+1 in vigilance, and it taps for a white. It is pretty boring. I see people use them, and I never really care about them. I never really put these in my deck. I never really see the advantage of it. I want my planes to come in untapped, and I don't really care about +1/+1 in vigilance for a turn. So I don't take Sandstep Bridges. I don't play Sandstep Bridges, and certainly not a first pick. On to the uncommons. We've got a Forerunner of Slaughter, black and a red for a 3/2 Devoid, and you can pay a single generic mana to give target colorless creature. That's very important. I have sometimes tried to give a colored creature haste, and that doesn't work. But you can give a creature haste until end of turn, including itself. So you could play this for a generic black and red mana and make it a hasty 3/2. Pretty nice creature, pretty aggressive. If you're black-red, you probably want to be going down kind of this route and just being super aggressive against your opponent. Not really a first pick, though. This is a card that you take when you're already kind of going down the black-red route. You've gotten some red removal, some black removal, some decent creatures. Then you can start picking these up. Not a first pick, though. Blighted Fen. This is a land that taps to add a colorless mana, not a generic mana. So this should say add diamond, but it says add 1, so we're going to have some confusing months where new players will be confused as to why some lands make diamonds and other lands make 1, and why are those technically the same thing. But it does that. It makes 1 colorless mana. You can pay 4 generic mana and 1 black mana to tap it and sack it to make your opponent sack a creature. I like the Blighted Lands. The Blighted Lands are good, and they go relatively late enough that you can pick these up if you need them. If you're in a black deck, take one of these. It doesn't enter the battlefield tapped. The only time it kind of sucks is if you get this, turn 1 as one of your lands. You'd prefer one of your color-producing lands. But any other point in the game, these are just solid to have because they're going to tap for mana, and you need mana. And then someday, they're going to make your opponent kill a creature. And maybe it just gets rid of one little blocker. Maybe it gets rid of their only threat that's keeping them in the entire game. I like Blighted Fen. It's possibly one of the top... one of the top 5. Let's say it's one of the top 5 blighted ones. I'm not sure if I would go with Gorge over the Fen. I think I probably would. Our last uncommon is Bane of Bellarke. This is a 7 generic mana creature. Whenever it attacks, your opponent exiles 2 permanents. Their lands, their creatures, their enchantments, anything they have. 2 of them need to go away. This is a great creature. However, that 5 toughness means that this thing dies constantly on its first swing. You'll get 2 things exiled. By turn 7, that's probably going to be 2 lands that aren't going to be that big of a deal for your opponent. And then they'll block with, 2 creatures and kill this. So it does die pretty frequently, unfortunately. It is still, however, a good card. I would never first pick it, and I would never highly pick it until I'm in kind of pack 2 or pack 3, and I know I'm going to be able to get this out early. Because if this swings on turn 6, if this somehow swings on turn 5, your opponent's going to be in a massively bad spot. But if your opponent matches you land for land, creature for creature, this thing is way less effective when it finally comes down. So take this when you know you're going to be able to get it out early. Other than that, you may want to shy away from it. Our rare is Akum Hellkite, 4 red for a flying 4/4 dragon, and whenever you put a land on the battlefield, it pings a creature or player, unless you put a mountain down, in which case it double pings or shocks. It is player or creature, right? Yes, player or creature. This is a fun card. I did some really wacky things with this in Sealed, where I would do Nissa's Renewal? Whatever is the one that makes you go and get 3 land to put them on the battlefield, because I would go and get 3 mountains and deal 6 damage to whatever I felt like. It's not a good card, though. You wouldn't first pick this. You wouldn't go into red because of this. If you're in red, pack 2, pack 3, and you're kind of high curve red, yeah, take a look at it. But otherwise, I would stay away from it. The double red hurts. The 6 mana hurts. It's a bit too clunky, unfortunately. And we get a swamp and, hey, an Ob Nixilis emblem, but no expedition lands. None yet. I have not seen one. So our first picks are going to be Clutch of Currents or Eldrazi Sky Spawner, and I think I'm going to be pretty boring and just go with Eldrazi Sky Spawner. It's just a solid creature. You want to generally get into blue as soon as possible when you're drafting this set, and I would be totally okay with taking a Sky Spawner because, as I said, it goes in every single blue deck there is. So does Clutch of Currents, but I think you can get Clutch of Currents a little bit more regularly than you can get Sky Spawner. People know how good that card is. But that would be my pick. Let me know in the comments down there what you would take. Would you take the Sky Spawner? Would you take the Clutch of Currents? Would you take the Hellkite? Or would you take something else? Definitely let me know. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at TheManaLeak. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. And you can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/TheManaLeak. You've already found me here on YouTube. As I said, you've got the comment section down below. Make use of that. I love interacting with you guys down there and seeing you interact with each other. Please keep it civil. As always, if you like or enjoy my videos, you should like and subscribe to those videos. That way you'll be up to date on all the latest videos as they get posted. We will be entering set review season in a little over a month, I think. Actually, maybe even a little under a month. Set reviews will be starting, so you want to make sure you're subscribed so you see those the second they go up. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all next time.